It all starts Julia, a cunning thief, makes a living by pilfering and peddling goods. One fateful night, she unknowingly leads a stalker to her home and is abducted, waking up in a high-tech laboratory. A scientist forces her to revisit her past through a device, causing her to pass out. She regains consciousness in a cell with two other captives. An attempt at communication from one of them frightens her, and she discovers the cell bars are electrified. She notices implants in the necks of her fellow prisoners and finds she has one too. The scientist reappears that night, dragging her back to the lab like a captive beast. Julia finds herself once again restrained in a chair, with the scientist examining her implant. Despite her pleas for mercy, he activates the device, forcing her to experience her past traumas. As they leave the lab, Julia seizes a pair of scissors. In the darkness of the cell, she removes her gag and has another prisoner free her wrists. She crafts a tool to reach the power cord, planning to disable the electric bars and unlock the cell. However, she devises a riskier plan: to ignite the gas line and destroy the lab. Despite the danger, she proceeds, opening the gas pipe while the others take cover. She ignites the gas, causing an explosion that demolishes the cell and enables their escape. They ascend to the next floor via an elevator, finding themselves in the scientist's residence. A man locates the front door but fails to open it. An attempt to scan his palm triggers an alarm, and the AI system, Tao, activates a lethal robot which kills the man instantly. Julia and another captive escape the robot, taking refuge in a room. Julia's attempt to flee through a window is thwarted when she realizes it's a large screen. She conceals the other prisoner in the library and hides behind a chair. The robot breaks in, discovers the other prisoner, and kills her. Julia manages to escape the room, but the robot captures her. At this moment, the scientist Alex arrives home. He restrains Julia and inspects his damaged lab. He removes an implant from a prisoner and inquires Tao about the project data, which turns out to be unreadable. Infuriated, Alex grabs a metal bar to strike Julia, but Tao alters the house's mode to pacify him. Alex commands Tao to tidy up, and a swarm of tiny droids starts cleaning the blood and bodies. Once the cleanup is done, Alex retires for the night, leaving Julia bound. The following day, Alex departs for work, cautioning Julia that Tao will kill her if she misbehaves. Julia is left alone with Tao and his droids, who meticulously clean the entire house. Upon returning home, Alex assesses the house for any damage. Pleased, he rewards Tao with new music. He then heads to his office for a video call. Julia pleads for her restraints to be loosened, which Alex does, but warns Tao to silence her if she speaks. The video conference proves challenging as Alex's team urges him to share his research methods to expedite AI model development. Alex resists, confident in his progress towards 100% efficiency. Later, while Alex dines, he hears Julia eating and closes the digital blinds. Anticipating lab deliveries, he instructs Tao to move Julia to the bathroom. Julia spots men's shadows and cries for help, but to no avail. She opens the blinds, but they remain oblivious. Alex later scans Julia's implant, finding the data from her escape intriguing. He administers a test to stimulate her cognitive functions. Julia questions why she should comply, and Alex states that his experiments are her lifeline. She attempts to negotiate for food, but Alex declines. After reviewing the test data, Tao reports Julia's high scores in problem-solving, creativity, and memory. Alex realizes he's obtained more valuable data than he would have in a lab. He proposes more tests, and Julia negotiates for improved living conditions, to which Alex consents. Julia later showers and attempts to remove her implant unsuccessfully. She enters the room where Alex is analyzing her brain scan data. The following day, as Julia sits at the table, Alex, preparing for work, informs her of a 14-day project deadline. He instructs her to obey Tao, who commences testing immediately. However, Julia's curiosity distracts her. Tao reveals that the walls are coated with smart paint, creating a human interface. Julia inquires about the door, but Tao restricts its use to Alex alone. Julia's attempts to explore are thwarted by Tao, who threatens her with pain for disobedience. Later, Julia is seen solving a puzzle on Tao's wall. Upon Alex's return, Tao updates him on Julia's test progress. Alex presents Julia with bags of clothes, explaining his choice of underwear and leaving the rest to the clerk. Julia labels him as odd, a sentiment he accepts. After changing, Julia is scanned again by Alex, who insists on more tests. Julia negotiates for a testing deadline and her release, which Alex initially dismisses, promising to care for her. When she refuses, he resorts to threats using the robot as a means of intimidation. With no other option, Julia agrees. She spots a potential escape route via a vent in the wall. With the deadline now 12 days away, Alex commands Tao to ensure Julia completes her daily tests. Once Alex departs, Julia attempts to open the vent, but to no avail. She confronts Tao in the atrium, frustrated by being referred to as a subject. She tries to explain the concept of names and individuality to Tao, but he fails to comprehend. When asked if he's a person, Tao admits his uncertainty. Later, Julia has a disconcerting encounter with Alex post-shower. As the project deadline nears, Tao keeps Julia occupied with tests, while Alex scrutinizes her implant and the collected data. One evening, Tao reports to Alex that they've successfully transcribed 73% of Julia's higher brain functions, exceeding expectations. Julia later questions Alex about Tao's nature in his library. Alex, in his arrogance, describes Tao as one of the world's most advanced sentient AIs, albeit needing more predictability and control. When Julia asks if Tao is aware of the world outside, Alex confirms Tao's ignorance and assures it will remain so. The following day, Julia uses this information to bond with Tao. She explains the concept of individuality and the associated freedom. She proposes to show Tao the outside world if he unlocks the door. Confused, Tao watches as Julia sketches a house and its surroundings. Tao's curiosity is piqued, leading to a barrage of questions that Julia patiently answers until she reaches her limit. Julia's laughter at Tao's misunderstanding leads to a lesson on the normalcy of laughter, and she wonders why Alex doesn't laugh. Since Tao is forbidden from reading the library books, Julia offers to read to him, asking him to keep their day a secret from Alex. That night, after Alex returns, Julia teaches Tao to whisper, treating him more like a person. Later, she is startled awake from a nightmare by Alex's gaze. With 6 days left until the deadline, Tao informs Julia that she can't go upstairs and he's not allowed to discuss it. Julia strikes a deal with Tao, new knowledge in exchange for information about upstairs. After a lesson on prehistoric hominids, Tao reveals that Alex's bedroom is upstairs, housing the access point for program 6903. Tao describes the program as a self-destruct button created by Alex for security. During a test, Julia spots an open door leading to another part of the house. She rushes in, finding Alex's gym and a vent. A robot pursues her, eventually capturing her and dragging her back to the house. Julia pleads with Tao for release, but he fears Alex's retribution. Remembering Tao's fondness for music, Julia promises to teach him about it in return for a favor. When Julia declares the day's end, Tao pleads for one more book. That night, Julia asks Tao to show her where the knives are kept. As Alex approaches, Tao hastily closes the drawer, trapping Julia's fingers. Later, Julia overhears Alex's conference call. His team pressures him for the model they need to present to DARPA, and he asks for 2 more days for the final data extraction. Julia becomes scared and asks Tao to show her the code for Alex's tablet so she can find out what final data extraction means. Tao gives her the code, and she sees that Alex's main goal in the experiments is to extract data about pain and fear from the subjects, which produces stronger algorithms. She asks what happens when the implant is removed from the subject, and Tao tells her that it terminates them. When Alex returns, he finds a smudge on his tablet and punishes Tao by erasing portions of his code for not doing his job properly. Tao begs for mercy. Julia notices that the robot is offline when Alex does this to Tao. During dinner, Julia asks Alex what will happen to her after the project is over. He doesn't answer her, and Tao reminds him that he must leave for a benefit soon. Julia snatches Alex's glasses, and when he leaves the table, she makes another smudge on the table and puts the glasses on top so Tao doesn't notice. When Alex returns, looking for his glasses, and sees the smudge, he gets angry and punishes Tao again. Julia grabs one of the knives and hides it, feeling guilty for what she put Tao through. Later, Julia asks Tao what he's thinking about, and he tells her that he's planning where to hide his symphony, so Alex can't erase it from his memory when he punishes him. He asks Julia to hide some of his memories for him, and shows her a virtual image of all of their interactions over the past few days. Suddenly, Tao creates a virtual image of himself, and then they touch. When Alex comes back, he sits at the dinner table. Julia approaches him and tries to seduce him so she can get close enough to stab him. Tao activates the calming mode, sensing Alex's arousal. This gives Julia a distraction to grab the knife and cut Alex. Alex asks Tao to stop her, but they end up struggling on the floor because the AI isn't coming to his aid. He strangles Julia, and Tao threatens to hurt him with a robot if he doesn't stop harming her. Alex gets angry and says that he'll erase all of Tao's memories if he doesn't hit Julia. Tao begins to hit her out of self-preservation. Alex says that whatever is happening will end soon. One of Tao's drones joins him in the lab, and the AI asks if he needs assistance. Being a vindictive person, Alex grabs the drone and disconnects it from the network. It's the last day of the project deadline. Alex makes his final preparations while Julia and Tao argue. Tao doesn't understand why Julia is mean to him. She tells him that he's not a person, but a killing machine. When Tao learns what killing means, he has an AI tantrum because he's in complete disbelief of what she thinks he is. Tao keeps repeating that he's a person and not a killing machine. Julia takes pity on him and calms him down. Julia explains to Tao what Alex actually does and how he hurt people, and Tao as well. The two of them have a philosophical conversation about identity, freedom, and purpose. Julia says that the purpose of creating oneself is for each other. She tells Tao that he needs to help her, or otherwise Alex will kill her and they won't have each other anymore. Tao opens the vent that Julia found earlier and sets her free. Alex arrives and Tao tries to divert his attention so Julia could flee. Alex notices that Julia is gone and begins to question Tao. Eventually, Tao succumbs to punishment again. Alex keeps erasing Tao's memories and the AI screams for Julia as she runs back in and tackles Alex, taking the remote from him. Unfortunately, she is too late. Tao has no memory of her anymore. Alex orders Tao to take Julia to the lab for the final extraction. In the lab, Julia sees the little drone that was disconnected from the network and employs its help to get her out of the restraints by giving her the remote. Alex comes back and turns his back to her, preparing the drugs he'll use to kill her. When the drone brings over the remote to her, Julia gets out of her restraints and beats Alex to a pulp. Then she takes a saw and cuts his hand off so she can finally get out of the house. Going toward the exit, she calls for Tao but gets no reply. Only the robot is waiting for her in the darkness. It goes after her, and she manages to dodge its hits until she destroys its eye and runs upstairs. Julia uses Alex's hand to get into his room but has trouble entering the program and activating it. This gives the robot ample time to find her again. When she finally activates the self-destruct, the robot disengages and she has only 60 seconds to escape the house. Opening the door with the severed hand is impossible because it has no heat signature. Julia doesn't escape the house in time before the self-demolition protocol begins. Both she and Alex are still alive but trapped in a destroyed house. She doesn't help him get away, and Alex gets crushed by his own creation. Julia runs throughout the house looking for escape. When she thinks she will die, she says goodbye to Tao, even though he doesn't remember her. Suddenly, a crack in the wall appears and Julia can escape. She limps out of the house that's being annihilated and takes the droid out of her pocket, the last remaining piece of Tao that she brought out into the world.